State of Wisconsin versus James Prokopovitz, 19 CF 716. Appearances, please.
Deputy District Attorney Wendy Lemko and Assistant District Attorney Caleb Saunders appear on behalf of the state, along with Sergeant Roman Erenstein of the Brown County Sheriff's Department and Special Agent Jay Yurgis of DCI.
Your Honor, James Prokopovitz appears in person, being assisted by Attorney John D'Angelo. Also at council table is my paralegal Bonnie Gottfried.
Go ahead, Ms. Lumkool.
Thank you, Your Honor. After court yesterday, Your Honor, I just wanted to memorialize that the parties had spoken off the record. The state had indicated to the court that we believed that we would be able to finish our case or put it in by the end of today, pending on time and availability into the morning of tomorrow. We just wanted to make sure that the defense was aware with regard to that. There was also a discussion on the record relevant to potential verdicts, and the parties discussed a few jury instructions that we believe we should submit based upon some of the unique characteristics of some of the testimony and things in this case. So we will submit those. For the record, the state believes that we want to make sure we're following the standard jury instructions. I think it's 484 regarding separate verdict forms, so we want that on the record. And secondly, yesterday before one of our witnesses, we had addressed the fact that there had been prior court rulings by Judge Hinkfist which indicated what the admissibility of evidence was going to be in the state's case. We had followed that yesterday with the witness and warned Attorney D'Angelo before we called that witness about just a reminder of what we believed the rulings were in the case. And I am now calling another witness, Lisa Mastey, where the court has indicated that we are not able to ask her certain questions, that it would be cumulative to the testimony that her mother already gave. So I've spoken to Attorney D'Angelo just so that all parties are aware. We would not like there to be any issues clearly at the end of this case. And I think both parties agree that we'll be able to stay within the confines. You weren't the presiding judge when we had a witness in the beginning of this case where we indicated we believed the defense opened the door by one of their questions. Judge Hinkfist didn't disagree. We had a discussion on the record. The state does not intend to run through that door, although we think they opened it in the previous witness. But I just want to indicate that should the defense start asking Lisa about the attitudes of her dad and the treatment that the family received, that then we will believe that this would open the door and we wouldn't have to follow the constraints that the court has given regarding her testimony. So I think we're all in the same place. Obviously, the delay right now is I have a witness out there. I want to double check that she understands what the court has said so she doesn't start offering information that the court has deemed would be cumulative. State's already got it in through another witness that we're not allowed to start asking her about what was going on in the household while they were growing up. But we're fully intending to stay within the confines of that ruling. But I just wanted to also bring it to the court's attention because it was a ruling previously given by Judge Hinkfist.
All right, I have a copy of the ruling before me. Any further comment, Mr. D'Angelo?
Your Honor, I'm fully aware of the ruling. I did discuss this with District Attorney Lemko prior to going on the record. I think we all understand the parameters in which we are limited to in asking questions. We will stick to those parameters. So I'm fine with that, Your Honor. With regards to the verdict forms, I understand the state is looking for separate verdicts. I think the court provided kind of a more...
Well, what I did, I provided you a copy of the proposed verdict and then a copy of that. It might be 284, 484. I guess it'd be a 484 modified. It was prepared by my judicial assistant, but I give that to you now because I understood that you may want to review it before we get to the verdict conference. I'm just do that as a courtesy so you'd have it available early on.
Sure. With that, Your Honor, I will review the documents and we can have a further discussion on that if needed. So I'm fully aware of the confines. I understand that the state may be wrapping up their case and we'll be prepared to proceed forward.
All right. All right, Ms. Lumkool, then you can call your first witness. Right, let's bring the jurors in.
Yeah.
And then do you need to talk to her while we're bringing the jurors in, or has she been told about the confines of the previous court order?
She has been told about it, but what I will indicate, Your Honor, before the next witness, I think the state is going to need a brief recess to confer with Attorney D'Angelo about some issues regarding that witness. But no, I've already spoken to her.
All right, all rise for the jurors. You may bring the jurors in. Good morning, welcome back. I hear there was a slight delay due to the, I hear a bridge, it was either a boat or a train, but I see you all made it on time, so glad you were able to circumvent that delay, and glad to see you all here this morning. State may call the first witness. Jurors may be seated.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state would call Lisa Mastey to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated. Very good. Thank you for moving up to the microphone. Would you first tell us your name and then spell it for the record?
Lisa Mastey, Lisamastey.
Thank you. You may examine your witness.
Thank you. Now, Lisa, could you please repeat your full name for the record?
Lisa Mastey,
And how old are you?
53.
Lisa, who is your father?
James Prokopovitz,
And is that a senior?
yes.
And does your father have a nickname?
Curly,
And who's your mother?
Darlene Ingalls,
Do you have any siblings?
yes.
Who is that?
My brother, James Malin Jr.,
Does he also have a nickname?
Wally,
Now, Lisa, do you see the individual that you identified as your father here in the courtroom today?
yes, he's to my left in the blue shirt.
Okay. Let the record reflect the witness has pointed out the defendant, James Prokopovitz Sr.
The record will so indicate.
Now, Lisa, at some point as you were growing up, were your parents married?
Yes,
And at some point, did they get divorced?
yes,
After that happened, did your father remarry anyone else?
yes.
Who was that?
Victoria,
And was she then Victoria Prokopovitz?
when they got married, yes.
Through the years, did you have the opportunity to get to know Victoria?
Yes,
Do you yourself have children?
yes,
And through the years, did she assist you in any way with them?
yes. She helped babysit my daughter mainly.
And that would have been while you were working?
Yes,
So at some point, do you remember kind of what years that would have been that she had been babysitting your daughter?
my daughter was born in 90, so she pretty much watched her from little till about 3 or 4.
Okay. So in the 90s?
Mm-hmm.
And after that time, did you still remain in contact with Victoria?
I did, yes.
And through those years, when you were in contact with them, and Victoria and your father, they married in 1989, is that right?
Yes,
Were you a part of that wedding?
yes,
Do you have any, as a result of that marriage, do you have any step-siblings?
yes.
Who are they?
Stacey, Marcia, and Wes.
And at some point when your father married Vicky, did you have cause to live in a household along with those step-siblings?
Yes,
And back then, did everybody pretty much get along?
yes,
Now, at some point through the years, did you come to learn that Vicky went missing?
Yes.
And how did you learn about that?
My brother called my husband, and then my husband called me.
You didn't hear from that from your father?
No.
At the time that you learned that Vicky goes missing, and I'm bringing you back and would direct your attention to the morning of Friday, April 26, 2013. Did you hear about Vicky missing that same day that it
Yes.
was reported to police?
Yes.
And as a result of learning that, what did you do?
I went right to the house.
And at the time that you went to the house, did you have the opportunity to see your father?
Yes.
And through that first weekend, as Victoria is now missing, are there searches that are begun in an
Yes.
attempt to locate her?
Yes.
When those searches are going on through those next few days and the ensuing weeks, do you participate in those searches?
Yes.
Do Marcia and Stacey arrive at the residence?
Yes.
Does Marcia participate in the searches?
Yes.
Does Stacey participate in the searches?
Yes.
Does your father participate in the searches?
No.
Now, around the time that this occurred, had you ever had discussions with your father about money in the household and his attitude towards saving money?
Not with him particularly, but Vicky would mention it.
Okay. And was there anything believed to be a burden on them financially in the household?
Medical bills.
After Victoria or Vicky has gone missing, did your dad make any comments in front of you relative to him saving money?
Other than about the electric bill.
What was that about?
That the electric bill got much smaller now that she's not there.
Do you remember when he was making comments like that?
We'd go to the house and he would just start talking about it. We would stop in and he would mention it.
During the searches, did you ever see your father consuming alcohol?
Yes,
When was that?
the day of.
What did
The
you
very first day she was missing.
Okay. Were you familiar with your father and his drinking habits?
Yes,
Based upon that familiarity, was he someone you saw drinking regularly?
yes.
Did you see him drinking daily or weekly?
Daily.
Now, at some point, at one of those searches, did you also have cause to see your father intoxicated?
Yes.
And do you remember which search that was?
That was the one where we were at the big town hall. I don't remember the name of it, by Pittsfield. And he came after everything was done.
So he didn't participate in that search?
No,
Do you know approximately how long he was there when he did arrive?
not very long, a few minutes.
And you had the opportunity to view his physical appearance and demeanor?
Yes.
And did he appear intoxicated?
I don't know if he was totally intoxicated, but he was definitely drinking.
Okay. After Victoria disappeared, did your father make any other comments to you about financially benefiting with her being gone?
Not specifically to me, no.
Just the one you originally heard about bills?
Yes.
Now, at some point through the years, was your father employed with McKeefrey Trucking?
Yes.
And based upon your discussions with your father, was he familiar with some sludge ponds that McKeefrey was delivering things to?
Yes.
What did he say about that?
That's where he worked. That's where he primarily worked, was at the ponds.
Did he indicate whether he had access to those ponds?
Yes.
And how did he indicate he had access?
Because he was always the first one that went there for work to get everything going for the ponds.
And that's something he would share with you?
Well, I grew up with him. He worked at McKeefrey's for forever, so yes, I did know about the ponds. And my husband also worked for McKeefrey's, so I knew about the ponds.
And was that information you passed along to law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
Through the years when you interacted with Victoria, did you talk to Victoria about various things?
Mm-hmm, yes,
Did you feel that you were pretty close to Victoria at times?
yes.
I have nothing further.
You may cross.
Now, Ms. Mastey, when your parents got divorced, who'd you ultimately end up living with?
I was living with my dad for a short time.
And then, did you maintain regular contact with your dad over the years?
I wouldn't say regular, no.
When you testified that Vicky and your father would watch your daughter the first 2 years, correct?
Yep,
Okay. And from there, as your daughter got older and got into more activities, school, they saw her a little bit less and less, but still had some contact with her?
oh yeah, we had contact, we go visit.
And when was the last time you were out at, prior to Vicky being missing, what was the last time you were out at Kunish Road?
There I was not. The last place I would have been when they're in the house in Pulaski on the main street.
So that would have been before 2007, 2008?
Yes,
Okay. Did you speak with Vicky over the phone after they moved to Kunish Road?
tried to, but we would try to make contact, but she just didn't want to.
So you didn't really maintain a lot of contact with her?
No,
All right. So the conversation about Vicky mentioning bills, that was when they were living at the Pulaski home?
yes,
You were asked about your dad working at McKeefrey's in these sludge ponds. Did you know whether or not he was still working at the sludge pond site for Georgia Pacific at the time that Vicky went missing?
I can't say for sure.
And do you know if he still had access to that site when Vicky went missing?
I can't say for sure.
Do you know how you would have to access that site?
No,
Do you know how, if it's secured or by a lock or a code or anything of that
as
nature?
far as I know, it was secured with some sort of a code.
But you're not 100% sure?
No,
And when Vicky went missing, you were not sure whether or not he was working there or working at the Georgia Pacific plant down on Broadway, do you know?
no,
You were talked about your dad not going on these searches. Wes also didn't go on those searches as well, true?
true.
And you said that you saw him, he was drinking the day of. Do you know how many drinks he had that day?
He was drinking beer. I didn't keep count.
Did he look like he was fall down drunk?
I wouldn't say fall down drunk, but you could tell he had enough.
How do you know that?
I grew up with it. I could tell.
When you saw him at the town hall, he didn't go on that search as well?
No,
Wes didn't go on that search either?
no.
You said that you thought he was intoxicated, but you don't know for sure, true?
I wouldn't say intoxicated, but you could tell he had been drinking.
With regards to your dad speaking about some bills dropping, was that part of a larger conversation with regards to Vicky just being missing and that, he noticed that the bills went down?
I honestly cannot say for sure.
So it's just kind of one of those statements that were made but you don't really know the context at this
Right.
time? No further questions, Your Honor.
You direct?
Just one area. I caught that the defense asked you, referred to when Vicky and your dad were watching the kids. Isn't it true Vicky was the one watching your kids?
Vicky primarily did all of the watching of my kids.
Your dad would have been at work.
He would have been at work during the day, yeah.
I have nothing further.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Just briefly, Your Honor, Ms. Mastey, your dad would come home in the afternoon. You wouldn't be done with work at that time, correct?
No, he would be at home sometimes at night, yeah, when I was still working. So, but she primarily did most of the daytime, yes.
Understood. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You're excused. Come on, take it. We're going to take a short recess, and we need to discuss some matters outside your presence, so follow the bailiff for your recess. All right, you may be seated. You need a recess and to talk to Mr. D'Angelo?
We do, and then we have to advise the witness of this.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Court's in recess. All right, bailiff, you may bring in the jurors. All rise. Thank you. You may be seated. State may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state would call Jason Friday to the stand.
You can come right up. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated. You can take off your mask first. You can take the mask off. And if it does hurt your ears, you can take it off totally. It's up to you. All right, now, would you pull forward? You'll have to be about over the microphone for us to hear you. Would you state and then spell your name, please?
Jason J. Friday.
Could you spell your name?
Jason. Middle name is Jay. Last name is Friday, Friday.
Thank you. You may examine your witness.
Thank you. Good morning, Jason.
Morning.
Jason, how old are you?
I am 45.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah, I can, this a little bit louder, and I sound a little bit hard of hearing.
Okay.
Let's make sure we all use our microphones and then speak clearly.
Jason, you indicated you're 45. What is your date of birth?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
What is your date of birth?
5675.
So it's May 6th?
I'm sorry.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you suffer for some hearing impairment?
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you when you say that, but it's just certain things.
Do you read lips?
I can somewhat.
Does it help if I have my mask pulled down like this?
Yes. And if you talk a little bit slower.
Okay.
Remove your mask.
Oh,
And then, again, make sure you speak slowly, and that perhaps will help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason, is it your testimony that your birthday is May 6th?
Yes, ma'am.
Jason, what was your mother's name?
Captain Friday.
And what was your mom's date of birth?
5/5/58, I think.
But your birthday is May 6th and hers was May 5th,
Yep.
so close in time.
Yep.
Now, Jason, you identified your mom. What's your dad's name?
My father's name is Donald Friday.
May I interrupt for a minute? We have some hearing aid device. Do you want to try that? It's headphones that tie into the microphone system.
Okay, but I'll be willing to try that.
Okay, and then,
The volume's right here. It should be good.
so let me just count to 10 for you so you can adjust the volume. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. You're
Good? All right, you may continue, Ms. Lemko.
Thank you, Your Honor. Does that help, Jason?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Tremendous.
Okay. Now, you identified your mother and father. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have one sister. Her name is Jennifer Friday. And then I have a half-brother. His name is Donald Jr. Friday.
And Jennifer, is she older or younger than you?
She is older than me.
All right. Now, are you employed?
Yes, I am.
How are you employed?
I drive truck for a rotary transfer service out of Wausau.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention, Jason, back to 2013. Do you recall that year?
Yep.
At some point during that year, were you living with your mother, Kathy Friday?
Yes, I was.
Where were you living with her?
I was living at her house. Do you want the address?
Where was it located? What city or town?
It was by Curtis, Wisconsin. It's in Clark County, right on Highway 29.
Okay. And when you say Curtis, is that over west of Green Bay in?
It's west of Wausau.
Okay. Okay. Now, at the time that you're living with your mother, previous to 2013, back in November of 2012, did someone pass away who was significant in your mom's life?
Yes, that was my mom's longtime boyfriend, Marv Steinman.
Okay. And do you know how long your mom had been with Marv?
If I remember right, it was either 26 or 28 years.
And how did Marv pass away?
I think this from natural causes.
Had he been sick then in the days before he died?
Yeah, his health was going downhill, I would say the last 6 months or so.
Okay. So with respect to that, were you living with your mom back then?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And so you were able to see the decline in his health?
Yes.
And was your mom taking care of him?
Yes, she was, and I was also.
Okay. Now, moving forward to 2013, at that point, Marv had passed away.
Oh, he passed away in November of 2012.
Okay. And are you still living in that same place?
Yes, I was.
Was that a farmhouse?
Yes, it was a farmhouse.
And did your mom have any pets?
Yes, she had miniature donkeys, peacocks, barn cats, and dogs.
She had miniature donkeys.
Yep, miniature donkeys.
Now, and the pets that your mom had, were they important to her?
Oh, very much so.
Okay. Did you sometimes assist her with the care of the animals?
Yes, I did.
Now, at some point in 2013, did your mom approach you about going to a casino?
Yes, she did.
What was that about?
She was still dealing with, from what I could tell, she was still dealing with the loss of her boyfriend, Marv, and that she was telling me that all of a sudden she was going to go to the casino with some of her friends, and I was happy for her because, you know, she needed to get out of the house.
And you saw nothing wrong with her moving on like that?
No.
And getting out with some friends?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was hoping that she would.
And at some point, did you see any friends show up to pick your mom up?
Not that I recall. If I remember right, she would always drive.
Yep, okay. And do you remember talking to law enforcement later on that you thought that, in retrospect, that was weird?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to leading again.
I'm going to rephrase the question, Your Honor.
Thank you.
At some point, after your mom told you that she was going to do this, did she return from that trip?
Yes, she did.
And did she indicate anything else about that?
That's when she told me about that she ran into Jim
Okay.
at the casino.
And what did your mom say about that?
Well, she told me that she was playing a slot, and this guy walked up to her and asked her if she was Catherine Friday, and she said, yeah, and she said she didn't know who he was, and he introduced himself, and she told me that was somebody she knew from 30 years ago.
Okay. And that's what she initially said about it?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point then, after that initial trip where she's identified that she's bumping into this old friend, does your mom take another trip?
Yes, she did.
Now, these trips that she is taking, is she asking you to do anything for her when she takes these trips?
Yeah, I took care of the animals for her.
Okay. So you were aware of what she was doing based on you're helping her out with the animals?
Yes.
Okay. Your mother, through the years, had she had employment outside the house?
Yeah, she was a bank manager in Abbotsford.
And did she hold that position for a long time?
I can't remember, 22 or 24 years she was doing banking.
Based upon your relationship with your mom through the years, is it your opinion what is your opinion about your mother with respect to her reputation?
Well, it was very important to her. You know, that was something that was very important.
Now, at the time that you've now been told by your mom was the second trip, what did your mom tell you she was doing on this trip?
The second trip, and she was saying that she was going to go over to meet with Jim, and that he asked her out and everything, you know, so like they wanted to spend some time. So I said, okay, yeah. I said, go ahead and go, and I'll take care of the animals and stuff. And I remember she got back at like 2 or 3 in the morning, if I remember.
Okay. That's the second trip.
That was the second trip.
The first trip, she was gone overnight?
No, the first trip she was back. You
Okay.
know, she came back home because I remember she was back that morning because I came downstairs, you know, for breakfast and everything. I asked her about it. That's when she told me about Jim.
Okay. Do you remember what time of year in 2013 this was?
Yeah, it was right at the end of May.
Okay. And you've already identified your birthdays the beginning of May?
Yeah.
So you, as a point of reference, you recall this was later in that month?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, at the time that you're learning about this, your mom has now identified Jim asking her out. Is that right?
Yep.
Did she discuss with you anything else about their relationship, or just that he was asking her out?
That he was just, asking her out, and that she, I asked her, well, tell me a little bit about him. And so she did. So, and that's when she told me about that his wife was missing. And I remember her telling me that it was 6 months. And well, then later on, like the very next week or so, she asked me if he could come over that weekend. I'm like, tell me a little bit about this guy. And so then she goes, well, his wife is still missing. She's been missing for a month. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Because you told me she's been missing for about 6 months, because I remember thinking and remembering 6 months. And that's when she was like, oh, no, she's been missing since March. And that's when I said, no, he is not welcome to come here, because I did not trust him.
So let's talk about that. With respect to numbers, do you have a particular affinity with numbers? Are you pretty good at that?
Yeah, I can remember numbers pretty good.
So based upon that, you had certainty that the information she's now telling you is not consistent with what she said before?
Exactly.
Now, at the time that this is all happening, do you recall then if this is in May or the beginning of June?
This was at the very beginning of June.
Okay. And at that time, now you're learning that this Jim has a wife who's missing, right?
Correct.
Do you recall then, at some point, does your sister approach you about what's going on?
Yes, it was later on.
Okay. So you're learning about this early in summer. Do you recall when your sister Jennifer approached you?
I think it was sometime later in the summer.
Okay.
Maybe a month later and stuff, or I just can't remember exactly.
Sure. At some point in the course of these interactions then with your mother, is there a discussion about when she and Jim had started seeing each other?
Well, from what I knew of that at that point, that they started seeing each other at the end of May or beginning of June. But she told me that I was told by my sister that that she found out that that my mom and Jim had an affair over 30 years ago. When my mother was married to my dad, and that they kind of like rekindled their love. So, from what I remember, my mom telling me about Jim, that he would call her every so often, like every 5 years or something like that, to wish her, like right around her birthday, wish her a happy birthday. And to me, I just find that was kind of odd, that you can remember somebody's birthday, but you didn't call it every year, but you call it every 5 years or so. So, but that's what my mother told me, that's how she knew Jim.
And at some point during that summer, when you're discussing your mom's relationship with her, between her and Jim, did she indicate that it had begun in the beginning of 2013?
She told me that I can't remember, it was either or. I can't remember if it was either she called him or he called her. And that she told me that, they talked about Mars passing away and stuff. So, that's about the earliest I remember hearing something about Jim.
Okay. And again, the time frame, now Marv passed away in November of 2012.
Correct.
When your mom told you about when their relationship started, did she indicate it was the beginning of 2013?
Yeah, it was the beginning.
And had you indicated that you believed that then was around January of 2013?
If I remember right.
Now, at some point, do you continue living with your mom throughout 2013?
Yes, I did.
And again, you're an over-the-road truck driver then?
No, I was not.
You weren't working?
You know, I was not working at that time. And then I got a job later on at a different trucking company, but I worked in the shop.
Based upon the information that you had regarding your mom's relationship with Jim, at some point do you and your sister Jennifer confront your mom about her relationship with Jim?
Yes, we did.
And why did you guys do that?
Because we did our own digging and stuff, and we found out that she was lying about things. And so we confronted her about it. And of course, I was confronting her about it because I was concerned about her life. And, you know, and it just did not go too well between my mom and my sister and me. I mean, my sister and my mom really got into it. They stopped speaking after that. I continued to talk to my mom, even though, you know, I disapproved of her relationship. She was still my mother. You know, I still love her.
But the disintegration of what happened between you and your mom and your sister prior to Jim entering the scene, you were all getting along better?
Oh, yes. Yes, very well.
And did that change after the relationship your mom had with Jim?
Big time.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
You may cross, and you can remove your mask, Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Friday, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, sir. Now, in 2013, the beginning of 2013, you just testified that you believe that your mom and Jim started dating at the beginning of 2013, sometime in January. Is that
Not
right?
dating.
Not dating.
Not that they were talking.
They were talking at the beginning of 2013.
Yeah.
What proof do you have that they were talking in
Because
2013?
I remember my mother telling me that Jim called her, or she called him. I can't remember which way it went, but she said that they had a conversation about Marv, that Marv passed away.
Do you know if that conversation actually happened in May of 2013?
I know I heard that they talked again in May, in the very beginning of May.
When you and your sister confronted your mother, your sister had documentation about her phone bill that you gave her access to, correct?
Correct, because my mother was on my plan.
And on those phone bills, did you look at those phone bills?
I didn't see them all. I just was going off of what my sister told me.
And what was indicated was that the first phone call to Jim's phone was May 19th of 2013. Does that sound accurate?
Object to the form of the question, Your Honor, and lack of foundation. The witness says he has no idea, and they're just asking it through him, but he's indicated he had no idea.
Overruled.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Sure. As far as the first time that there was a record of your mother calling Jim on her phone records that your sister had was May 19th of 2013, correct?
I cannot answer that because I cannot remember. Because I didn't really see the records. I was just going off of what my sister told me.
So what you heard from your sister was that they had a conversation in January of 2013.
Objection calls for hearsay, lack of foundation as well.
Just trying to clarify his answer, Your Honor, as he said that he's going off what his sister indicated to him. So I'm trying to verify that, was he told that the call came in January 2013 by his sister, or did he actually know himself?
That's hearsay, and it's the wrong witness.
Well, I'm going to overrule because he did already testify about having some knowledge about a January phone call. So overruled, you can answer.
Okay, my answer is that my mother told me, my sister did not.
Your mother told you that
That
she
Jim
had a phone
and
call
her
with
had
you.
a conversation in January, at the beginning of the year.
And they didn't start seeing each other until the end of May, as far as you know.
As far as I know, no.
And with regards to, at that time, at the beginning of January 2013, I think you testified that you were not working.
Yes, I was not working.
So were you home most of the time?
Yes,
Did you ever see your mom leave for extended periods of time at the beginning of 2013?
I can't recall.
And did you ever witness her on the phone with Jim at the beginning of 2013?
No, because even though we lived at the same house, we didn't be next to each other all the time. It was a two-story house. I stayed upstairs most of the time. She was downstairs.
And as far as the first time you heard about your mom and Jim was at the end of May when she went to the casino.
Correct.
And then she went again to the casino maybe a week or two later?
A week later.
A week later. She asked you to meet with Jim, but you didn't want to, correct?
No.
Did you ever meet with Jim?
I met him one time, and I spoke to him on the phone one time.
But you have not had any significant interaction with Jim?
No.
You were comfortable with your mother going out and meeting new people right after Marv died, correct?
Yes.
And the only reason you were a little apprehensive is because you found out that Ms. Prokopovitz went missing about a month.
Yes.
Did you ever get any more details about that prior to making the decision you didn't want to meet with Jim?
No, I mean, I did my research online. I read the police reports and stuff. And my mom and me, we talked about it several times, and we always got in an argument about it. And I just told her no, because I did not trust him. And I was in fear of my own life.
And
I'm sorry, what? I was in fear of my own life.
And so you did your own research and you had kind of a preconceived notion before even meeting with Jim, true?
True, because I read the police report, like I said.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
I have nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, you're excused.
Thank you.
Jurors, you're welcome to stand up and stretch. They call the next witness.
At this time, the state would recall Sergeant Roman Erenstein.
You're still under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may be seated.
Erenstein, the jury's heard from you already regarding this case.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, just to refresh the recollection of the jury, you were one of the two assigned investigators in this case, is that right?
Yes, I am.
And with respect to the evidence collection in this case, we talked a little bit when you testified originally about the fact that when somebody's assigned as a case agent in your department, that the other investigators assist them with regard to investigations. Is that right?
That's correct.
And did that happen in this case involving Ms. Prokopovitz?
It did. It's not only the collection of evidence, but a lot of times there are tasks that are signed and are completed by a group of individuals in an investigatory team per se, and then ultimately that information is funneled to one or more case agents that review it and determine if additional information needs to be sought or investigative efforts need to be taken.
Now, the jury has also heard from various law enforcement officers within your agency, some within, some without, the information and tasks that other officers were assigned. Many of those times that would be done by you and your overseeing administrators.
That is correct.
When information is collected in this case, is it information that's then forwarded to you?
That is correct.
With regard to the assignments that are given to officers, are you the person who has the receptacle of all the evidence in the case?
That is correct.
Besides just items of evidence, were there statements taken in this case by other officers that were there to assist you?
Yes, there were.
All of those statements, all of that information, is that then forwarded on to you?
Yes.
And just to bring the jury back, with regard to your qualifications, you had been a law enforcement officer in various agencies and capacities. How long?
Approximately 20 years.
In the course of being assigned this particular case, at some point, did your agency also utilize the services of another law enforcement agency by the name of DCI?
Yes, as an assigned case agent, I had reached out to the Wisconsin Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation, to seek additional resources, and was ultimately assigned a partner, Special Agent Jurgis.
And that's, what's his full name?
Special Agent Jim Jurgis, J. Jurgis, I'm sorry.
Jay Jurgis, and is this the gentleman seated next to me?
Yes, he is.
Okay. And why, just so the jury understands, maybe they've heard of DCI, why does your agency call in and assist with DCI?
Well, first of all, having when you have a prolonged or complicated or complex investigation, and that spans a number of years and involves numerous pieces of either evidence or information that needs to be collected and reviewed, it's always beneficial to have more than one set of eyes taking a look at things. It assists in having an investigation that you have more than one different investigator taking a look at things, and therefore you're able to be more thorough when conducting that. As it relates directly to the Department of Justice, they have additional statewide resources that were helpful in this investigation, because as time progressed, this investigation took the two of us across the state of Wisconsin.
Now, with regard to the role that you had in Special Agent Jurgis in investigating this case involving Ms. Prokopovitz, what was the initial investigation focused on, starting on April 26th of 2013?
The immediate concern was to locate Victoria Prokopovitz.
We already heard one of the recordings now, initially on that Friday afternoon with you and Sergeant Shartner. After that initial interview, were there other interviews done with different individuals in this case?
There were.
And were there repeated interviews done involving Mr. Prokopovitch himself?
There were.
At the time initially when you are coming on scene, you indicated that your role is to find Vicky. Is that right?
Yes.
The resources and the focus of the investigation at that time, you're looking for her?
Yes.
And were there various individuals within the Prokopovitz family that you deemed were being more helpful in that quest to find Vicky?
Yes.
And who specifically was one of those individuals?
I think Marcia Lawrence stood out as somebody that always made herself available day or night and provided any and all information that I may need. As time went on, it became important for me to learn anything and everything that I could about Victoria Prokopovitch. It went to the victimology, it went to the study of who she was so I could better understand her, which would assist me in finding the truth of what occurred to her. Marcia, and then also other family members, Stacey Deere, and their extended family provided me that information. Each individual had a piece or a perspective that was unique to them, which was all documented and helped me in my search for the truth.
Now, you had indicated that you had worked other homicide investigations. Is that true?
I have.
And with respect to your knowledge and basis of training for those types of investigations, have you worked cases where they involve allegations of domestic violence with just two individuals in a home?
I have.
With respect to investigating different types of homicide investigations, have you investigated instances where there's no clear mechanism for how somebody has passed away?
I have.
Hypothetically, if you would arrive on a scene and you would find somebody who is dead because of a blunt force trauma and no weapon available, would you really know the mechanism for how somebody got the blunt force trauma?
No.
Have you also worked investigations where at the time that you arrive on the scene, you believe that there may have been a weapon involved, but there's no weapon located?
That's correct.
With respect to the investigation in this case, there's been a lot of talk about there not being a body. Have you worked other death investigations that simply all you have to go on would be a body?
I have.
With respect to the homicide investigations that you have worked on, have you worked on ones where circumstantial evidence leads you to learn how a death was caused or committed?
I have.
Now, in your training, I had loosely asked you as a basis of foundation if you had training and experience with respect to taking statements from alleged suspects. You indicated you have.
Extensive training, correct?
At the time that you are doing investigations and you arrive on the scene, is it important for you to be open-minded and consider any and all participants that could have been involved in someone's death?
Yes, I think when you're open-minded, you're able to gather more information that's going to give you an objective look at the facts.
And at the time that you're initially investigating Vicky, however, it is your testimony, this was just a missing person case.
It was.
Now, there was also some testimony with respect to the fact that missing person reports are actually very common here in our community. Would you agree with that?
Missing person reports are frequently reported to our agency, that's correct.
And to the point that in this case, that there is a form that gets filled out by your agency.
That is correct.
So at the time that you were arriving at this Coonish Road address on Friday, April 26, 2013, what was your role in starting to investigate this case?
Gather any and all information that I could that would lead me to the identification of Victoria Prokopovitch's location.
Now, at the time, and the jury now has heard that initial statement, when you arrive on the scene, do you meet with Jim Prokopovitz?
At his kitchen table.
At the time that you are speaking with Jim Prokopovitz, do you observe anything out of the ordinary in that house?
I observe that the house is a farmhouse. I observe that it's a small house. I observe there's a lot of knickknacks and decorations, but it appears to be somewhat orderly in nature, even though there was a plethora of them. I observe the fact that Mr. Prokopovitch is trying to relate to me the fact that he has an adult wife that is missing, she's been missing for a longer period of time that's usual. And everything that he's relaying to me suggests to me that I should be able to locate her somewhere in the immediate area.
Had you responded to other instances where someone has inferred that somebody could have taken their own life?
I have.
And in those cases, is it more common than not that you would locate a body in close proximity?
In every single case that I can recall, I've located the decedent either at the residence or within the immediate surrounding area of the residence. That's happened, unfortunately, numerous times in my career. Frequently the loved one finds the individual prior to calling the police, but I've had a number of instances where the loved one has either found a note or has had other information that led them to believe that that there was concern. And when law enforcement arrives on scene, we end up finding the decedent in the immediate area.
And were you able to locate Vicky in that immediate area on that date?
I was aware that extensive searches had happened for a number of hours prior to my arrival and that she had not been located. So my primary objective was to continue to locate additional resources into the search for her in the coming hours and days.
And the searches with respect to the information you had on that date, those searches were important in your attempts to locate Vicky?
Yes, they were.
Because again, at that point, you're just trying to locate Vicky.
Yes, I am.
Now, is there a document that was prepared by you with respect to the searches that were conducted in this case?
Yes, there was.
And you indicated that there were various searches that were conducted.
Yes, there were.
Based off the top of your head, what were some of the different types of searches that were done in this case?
So just to clarify, at a certain point as the investigation went on, and Victoria Prokopovitch was not located in the immediate area, law enforcement, including myself, conducted searches based on tips that we had received in other areas other than the immediate area. Some of these tips came from anonymous sources, psychics, friends, family. Additional searches were not necessarily, as we had heard, boots on the ground, but they were document type of searches, record searches, motor vehicle searches, bank record searches, pharmacy searches, things that we could identify that were being utilized by Victoria Prokopovitch to see if there was any kind of evidence or basically any evidence of life. And that was the purpose of those searches.
Although we've indicated that you've worked other homicide investigations, a unique factor with respect to this was the fact that through the years, Victoria was not located, her body, is that right?
That's correct, and the searches addressed basically the lack of information was in itself evidence in this case.
With regard to those searches, and again, now I'm addressing the searches that were occurring through the years, some of which the jury's already heard from the searchers. Did you prepare a document that memorializes and outlines the searches that were made in this case?
I did.
If we could have a moment to just make copies of this, we believe this would be a little bit more smoothly. Oh, you do have one? Sergeant Erenstein, with respect to this document, would reviewing it assist you in your testimony today?
It would.
Now, Sergeant Roman Erenstein, I'm showing you it's from marked Exhibit 89. Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is this?
It's the document that we had been discussing,
Okay.
documenting the searches. So what I did to create this document was I reviewed the thousands of pages worth of records that have been compiled throughout the years in this case. And the focus was to try to identify and compile a repository at one place where I could have access to efforts that were taken, whether they, documenting the searches for Victoria Prokopovitz.
Now, with respect to these searches, as part of the investigation, did you also forward the diameter or radius of these searches to some forensic analysts to chart out the different areas that were searched?
Yes, so this was the source material that was used, that was provided to an analyst with the Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation as it relates directly to the residence located at 5118 Coonish Road. This particular document documents and outlines all the searches related to Victoria Prokopovitz.
But just so the jury understands, all of that information then and data was given to Spencer from DCI?
That is correct.
And that would be another witness we'd call later today. You're here to testify to the actual searches?
That is correct.
All right. And we heard from some various, thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the state would move for the admission of Exhibit 89, asking that it be published to the jury just as the witness.
No objection, Your Honor.
89 is admitted. You may publish.
Now, can we move the board, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, Sergeant Erenstein, with respect to the information in this document, and again, the jury's heard from some various searchers, several of whom mentioned you solicited their efforts. With regard to whatever the data was or whatever they were doing on these searches, were there reports or information turned over to you?
They were?
So collectively, that was one of your roles in this investigation as a case agent, is to get all of that information and to process it.
That's correct.
Besides you processing it as an investigator and a detective, you then used forensic analysts to also then chart out and map that data.
That's correct.
Now, you started initially talking about the fact that you were on the scene of that residence on Coonish Road on April 26th of 2013. Is that right?
Yes.
We were looking to see if we had an extra copy to give you because we didn't know your vantage point. I don't know if you can see what's up on the board.
It would be helpful if I had a copy.
What?
It would be helpful if I had a copy due to the glare and the
You
vantage
can't
point.
see it either. Can we have a moment, Your Honor?
Sure. You may. I'll take a break to the jury room. off the plexiglass for the screen, so you're having a hard time seeing the screen. And we're gonna get you a copy of the documents that are gonna be put on the screen. Now, about how many documents is this gonna be?
It's one document.
Oh, it's just
How many
one.
pages?
Okay, how many pages, right? How many images will the witness be looking at during his testimony? About
50.
50? Okay. And then, for the record, Mr. D'Angelo has those as a document with the 50 images? All right.
Well, and for the record, Your Honor, I think what the issue is we're doing a trial during COVID, and we've got this plexiglass, and it's not clear with respect to the witness and the jury. It's atypical for what we would expect everybody would be able to see.
Okay. Should we inquire if the jurors can see through their plexiglass? I realize the witness is at a different angle than the jurors, so he may have actually two angles of plexiglass to look through. But maybe we'll just check with the jurors once they come back in if they can see through their glass or if they're getting a reflection also.
We did practice prior to this trial the ability to see through the plexiglass because we were aware prior to the trial that we were going to be playing videos and images. That's why in jury selection, I know you weren't able to be there, but we had extensive questioning about that. And so we have asked the bailiff to let us know when jurors can't hear or see anything. And for the record, we haven't heard that they've had any problem with respect to that.
Fair enough. So it probably is the angles of the witness stand and the plexiglass on the witness stand that makes the issue. Okay, we'll take a short recess while we get those copies made.
Thank you.
You're welcome.